You probably don't think about this very often. Well, because it moves you emotionally, so you tend to keep your big feelings under control. But hey, just for a moment, what breaks your heart? What's the one thing that just gets you so deeply that you just can't escape it? I know there are a lot of things that when you read about them or you hear about them, you say, man, that's awful. But what's the one thing, that one issue that holds on to you? And just something just bubbles up in you and you think, man, this should never happen. Or somebody's got to do something about this. I've got to do something. I know. We jumped right in pretty deep, didn't we? I guess I should pause and say, hey, my name is Jarrod, and I hope you'll stick around for the rest of the conversation today, okay? And I hope you keep coming back to this channel. It's called Journey at Home, and if you're like me, you want a better life. And that's what every conversation is every week here. We believe that better life is found in learning to follow Jesus and trust the way of life that he left for us. So, hey, take a second to subscribe, click the bell, get notifications, and come along on this journey with us. Now, about that thing that breaks your heart, let's get back into that. Some of you knew it immediately when I said it, but a lot of us don't find that question easy to answer, do we? So let's think about it this way. At the end of your life, what would you like people to line up and thank you for? I mean, making it simpler for people to connect with God, would that be an answer? Helping people get the education they couldn't afford on their own? Making sure kids without a family find a foster family? Giving people the opportunity to break the cycle of poverty in their family? I mean, I don't know how you'd answer it. However you'd finish that sentence, it gives you a really good clue to what breaks your heart. So we're in the 5th and final episodes of this series at Revolutionary, the empowering invitation of the cross. And for most modern day Christians, the cross is a symbol. It's about believing something. But in the first century, the cross represented a much more powerful idea. It was about a way of life, a different countercultural alternative, but not intuitive revolutionary way of life. A life so counterintuitive because it's not based on the win-lose game that's so common in our world. Jesus flipped everything upside down with a new set of values based on a lose-win game. And how could that work? I mean, what kind of kingdom can operate with a bunch of losers? But Jesus proved that losing, surrendering, and yielding yourself to God and his bigger purpose, you can actually win doing that. And part of the way you figure out that bigger purpose is you pay attention to what breaks your heart, because your heart is broken by divine design. God put that in you, and you have no idea what hangs in the balance of your decision to embrace the burden he's put in you. But that's also what makes this so challenging, isn't it? Because once you identify that thing that breaks your heart, it's going to require something of you. So we'll often actually dodge this question or evade dealing with it because we get a sense of the cost that's going to be required and the cost of time and energy and money and other opportunities. I mean, you'll have to say no to some things that you'd normally say yes to because you're now giving your life to what breaks your heart. I mean, it may cost you some of your free time. Basically, it will cost you some of your life. And we know this, so sometimes we run from it because we want to preserve our life. We want to protect ourselves. We think saving our life, our money, our talents, our opportunities for ourselves will give us the best chance at getting the most out of this short life we have, right? Because nobody else is going to look out for me. I've got to do it. But that's what makes Jesus' teaching so interesting and challenging. He said the opposite is true. The way of the cross, this counterintuitive idea, that if you live for you, and by live for you, I mean prioritize you above everything else, then you get to the end of your life and you have nothing to show for your life but you. I mean, you may have done a great job of taking care of your body, you be in great shape, you kept your ideal weight, right? Saved a lot of money, executed a perfect investment strategy, that's legit. Traveled to all the places you wanted to see, but at the end, all you've got is you. Now, we're all about saving money for the future around here. Listen, taking care of your health, getting out of debt, traveling to cool places. I mean, listen, some of us need to put a little more money and energy into some of those things, right? But here's Jesus's point. All of those things are too small to devote your entire life to. You are too small a purpose to live for. If you really want to become a better person to live a full life, well, then don't prioritize yourself above everything else. The way to live a better life and become that better person you want to be is to focus on making the world around you a better place. Now I know what the king of pop, Michael Jackson, said. You must start with the man in the mirror. But just stop and think for a moment. Who are the people that you admire most in your life? They're not the people who lived their entire lives devoted to themselves, are they? I mean, they aren't the people who maintain their ideal weight all throughout life, Wore a size 2 a few months after pregnancy, wore a size 2 through their twilight years, got buried in that size 2. No, listen. The people you admire most are the people who chose to do something consistently across their lives for the good of other people. And they made the world better by doing it. I'm not just talking about famous people who everybody celebrates. I'm talking about the selfless, everyday people that you admire. The invitation to embrace the way of the cross is so empowering, but it requires an intentional effort to overcome our self-centeredness, the self-absorption that is inside every one of us. Jesus talked about this way of life and he modeled it for us. I mean, he literally gave up his life for us. So when he talks about this, you got to take him at least a little seriously, right? He wasn't talking about a theory or some philosophy out there. He was talking from experience. Here's one example. I mean, there's lots of them, but Luke tells us about a particular day when Jesus was surrounded by huge crowds of people who were looking to get something from him. I mean, he was healing sick people, taking care of people, feeding them even. And Jesus was okay doing all that. But he also knew that all these people following him around weren't fully committed to living the life he was inviting them to live. I mean, some of them were just in it for the personal benefits they were getting from it. So he decides he needs to remind them that they are welcome to follow him around. But what it means to be a disciple is something very different than just kind of hanging out in the general vicinity. Like, don't get fooled into thinking your commitment is about hanging out with me. There's a cost. And that cost always allows you to experience the life you were created to live. Listen how Luke tells this story. And to be honest, you find yourself feeling some tension. And listen, you may want to push back a little bit. It says, large crowds were traveling with Jesus. And turning to them, he said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters. Whoa, wait up, Jesus. That's one way to thin out the crowd, isn't it? Now, when Jesus uses this word hate, he's not referring to the emotion of hate, and he's not teaching us that we should actually hate our families. We know that because Jesus taught us to love one another the way he loves us. So he's clearly not teaching us that we need to hate people. He's using this word to make a point about our priorities in life. He's basically saying, if you're not willing to put me first, then you can't be my disciple. If you're not more committed to me than you and your own family, if you're not willing to let me author your story and guide your life, but instead you let your own vision of a good life and your family's prosperity and success drive you, then you're not a fully devoted disciple. He goes on to tell about this in the end of his statement. Yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. Now listen, just to be clear, you can be a Christian without having this level of love and commitment to Jesus. Being a Christian is about believing, but being a follower of Jesus requires surrender. And this is where a lot of us choose to walk away because the cost of committing my life is more than I want to pay. We'd rather just get near enough to Jesus for the self-improvement part. And Jesus, help me be more patient, give me a better marriage, help me keep my kids on the right track, help me stop my bad habits. And by the way, those are great places to start. There's nothing wrong with wanting Jesus to help you do all that. But there's actually more here than just that. The essence of fully following Jesus is self-denial, not self-improvement. The way of cross is denying yourself and letting him guide your every aspect of your life. Learning to live life the way Jesus taught us will definitely cost us something. And here's how he said it. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. He wasn't talking about a necklace or wall art. Jesus and the people listening only knew one cross, and it was a tool of torture and death. I mean, they understood immediately that what Jesus was saying was that they were welcome to keep hanging around and enjoying the benefits of following him, but they weren't a disciple until they were willing to die to themselves, chase humility, and live for him. You want a better life? Jesus says, okay, I have something better for you, but it will require surrender. You want to make the most of your life? I can help you do that, but you'll need to pay a price on the front end. And the price? You'll have to trust me more than you trust your family connections, your vision of the good life, and your own power and wealth. To truly follow me means to let me shape how you think and act in every area of your life, instead of just doing what you prefer to do. Jesus says he gets to call the shots. That means die to yourself and live for Jesus instead. So let me show you another example. Mark wrote down a different conversation that shows Jesus had to address this idea several times. For whoever wants to save their life, well, of course I want to save my life. That's pretty normal. What's the catch here, Jesus? For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. So if you think the way to save your life is to make you the priority every day, then you'll actually begin to lose your life. You'll get to the end of your life and have nothing to show for your life but you. So Jesus turns this around and says, but whoever loses their life for me and the gospel will save their life. This isn't about being irresponsible with your life and devaluing your life and just throwing it away, running around trying to be a martyr. This isn't about giving up your job at the bank or the factory and running away to another country to be a missionary. And everyone ends up being a pastor or something. That's not what this is about. Jesus' point is something different. Jesus is trying to help us understand that when you lose your life to save another's life, you actually save your own life. That when we focus on choosing to live for Jesus, not ourselves, we start living out the gospel where we are. And the gospel is a word that just means good news. And what's the good news? Jesus has given us a greater purpose and meaning to live for and to share, and it's bigger than me alone. Jesus is trying to point out that when you're willing to let what breaks God's heart break your heart, and then rearrange your life to point your energy and your money and your opportunities towards those things, the beauty of that process gives you access to better life, more meaning, greater fulfillment. As you give up your life for the good of other people, you only gain more life. But try to save your own life for your own protection and prosperity, and you'll miss out. You'll have nothing to show for it, and all that effort will just end up being you. You know what broke Jesus' heart? The fact that you and I were eternally separated from God by our sin. So he chose the way of the cross to win us back. He lost big time. And by losing, he won for you and he won for me. So do you want to follow him? This is the way of the cross. Now, you'll probably want to think about this some more this week. So let me give you a few questions that will help you process what Jesus is inviting you to do. First, the question we started with, right? What breaks your heart? Spend a little time this week thinking about that and figure out what that is. Secondly, who's doing something about that thing that breaks my heart? Like, it may be something with helping the next generation know about God, or so you jump in and help in with our kid or student environments here at our church. Or maybe there's some community or service project you really want to dive into. Or you don't want anyone who has been hurt by a bad church experience like you were to give up on God. So you want to jump in and help create better experiences here at our church every week so that people not in church love to attend every week. And maybe you realize nobody's addressing it, and you realize you've got to go first and try something. Okay, here's the third question. How can you help? What's your first action you need to take? It may cost you something, but ignoring what breaks your heart and what breaks God's heart is to deny the bigger purpose God has designed you for. You don't just see a need, you do something to meet it. Even if you can't do it all yourself or meet the whole need or solve the problem with one attempt. It doesn't mean you need to quit your job and abandon your family and sell everything you own. But it means taking a step to act in love. That's the process of losing your life to save another's. And in doing that, you're going to save your own life. That's the revolutionary way of the cross.